On November 27, 2015, the silence of Colorado Springs was shattered by gunfire. On that day, an ordinary medical center turned into the epicenter of horror, and a peaceful city became a battlefield. 57-year-old Robert Louis Deere, heavily armed, arrived at the Planned Parenthood clinic with a single purpose. What drove him to take this step? How did this tragedy unfold? Let's find out. Planned Parenthood Federation of America, also known as Planned Parenthood, is a U.S. nonprofit organization specializing in reproductive health services, including abortion. It was founded in 1916 by nurse and social activist Margaret Sanger in Brooklyn, New York. By the end of 2015, PPFA operated 59 affiliates and 700 clinics across the United States. The organization has been frequently criticized by anti-abortion activists, conservative politicians, and religious groups. In 2015, Planned Parenthood became the center of controversy following the release of videos allegedly providing evidence of the illegal sale of fetal tissue from medical research. PPFA denied these allegations, stating that the videos had been misleadingly edited to deceive the public. Following the release of these recordings, Planned Parenthood reported an unprecedented increase in hostility and threats. The organization expressed concerns about escalating violence, concerns that were tragically realized in the Colorado Springs shooting at one of its clinics. The Planned Parenthood Center in Colorado Springs had long been a target of anti-abortion protests. For security reasons, the facility relocated to a new building, which, due to its reinforced protective measures, was informally referred to as a fort. Robert Louis Deere Jr. was born on April 16, 1958, in Charleston, South Carolina, and spent his childhood in Louisville, Kentucky. His father, Robert Louis Deere's sister, served in the U.S. Navy during World War II and later worked for decades at the Liggett Myers Tobacco Company. Deere received his education at Midwestern College, led a reclusive lifestyle, and worked as an independent art dealer for some time. He lived in the mountains of North Carolina, where he built a small cabin. Shortly before the shooting incident, he moved to the town of Hartselle, Colorado, where he settled in a trailer on a plot of land he had purchased for $6,000. Acquaintances described Deere as a reserved and antisocial person with incoherent speech. James Russell, his former neighbor in North Carolina, recalled that he was quiet and avoided eye contact. Robert Louis Deere Jr. had multiple run-ins with the law. In May 1991, he was arrested in Charleston for illegally carrying a concealed weapon and possessing a loaded firearm. On November 29, 1992, his second wife claimed that he had threatened her with a knife and sexually assaulted her. Although a case was opened, no charges were filed against Deere. In 1997, according to police records, he assaulted his third wife, but the conflict was eventually resolved through reconciliation. In 2003, Deere was arrested and charged with the counts of animal cruelty, but he was ultimately found not guilty in court during their divorce proceedings. Deere's second wife stated that he identified as an evangelical Christian, but did not follow biblical teachings in his actions. He believed that until he was saved, he could do whatever he pleased. According to acquaintances, Deere held staunch anti-abortion views and claimed to be affiliated with the radical group Army of God, which was known for attacks on abortion clinics. On the morning of November 27, 2015, Robert Louis Deere, armed with a semi-automatic rifle, arrived at the Planned Parenthood facility in his vehicle. According to clinic staff, the first gunshots were heard outside the building. One of the victims, 61-year-old Ozzie Lee Sanal, recalled that the attacker looked him straight in the face and aimed at his head when Deere opened fire on his car. The man was injured by shards of the shattered windshield. The first 911 call reporting the shooting was made at approximately 11:38 a.m. Witnesses described the shooter as a man carrying a long-barreled firearm and dressed in hunting gear. When the first police officers arrived at the scene, Deere immediately attacked them, killing one officer and injuring several others in the ensuing shootout. Down scenes of police officers, FBI agents, firefighters, paramedics, and representatives from the El Paso County Sheriff's Office quickly arrived at the scene. However, according to the New York Times, federal agents in Washington were caught off guard and lacked full information about the situation for several hours. Roads around the center were blocked off, and efforts began to evacuate those still inside the building. Some staff and patients took shelter in designated safe rooms. Residents of nearby homes were advised to stay indoors, while visitors at a nearby shopping mall were ordered to remain inside until the operation was concluded. According to media reports, a local resident, armed with a handgun and wearing an ammunition vest, offered to assist law enforcement, but he was immediately ordered to leave the area at approximately 4:50 p.m. Deer was apprehended. Authorities immediately began searching the scene after receiving information that the suspect might have brought dangerous devices into the facility. His vehicle was also examined, and according to some reports, propane tanks were discovered nearby. Law enforcement officials suspected that Deer had intended to detonate them. As a result of the attack, 3 people lost their lives: 44-year-old police officers Garrett Swazi, 29-year-old K.R. Stewart, and 35-year-old Jennifer Markovsky. Garrett Swazi was born on November 16, 1971, in Boston, Massachusetts. In his youth, he competed in national figure skating championships and won several awards. At the time of the tragedy, he was serving as a police officer at the University of Colorado in Colorado Springs. He was married and the father of 2 children. Swazi was among the first to arrive at the scene and was killed in a shootout with the attacker. K.R. Stewart was a veteran of the Iraq War. He served in the U.S. Army from 2005 to 2007 at Fort Hood and later at Fort Carson, until his discharge in 2013. He was shot and killed while trying to run into the clinic to warn those inside of the danger. Jennifer Markovsky was a mother of 2. On the day of the tragedy, she had come to the clinic to accompany a friend. In addition to the fatalities, 9 people were injured, including 5 police officers. On November 30th, 2015, Robert Louis Deer was charged with 179 counts, some of which carried the possibility of the death penalty. At the time, he was being held in the El Paso County Jail and participated in the court hearing via video link. After the charges were read, Deer told the judge that he had no questions. He was assigned a public defender, Daniel King, a lawyer who had previously represented James Holmes in the case of the mass shooting at a movie theater in Aurora. The case was heard in the 4th Judicial District Court of Colorado under the presiding judge, Gilbert Martinez. The first hearing took place on December 9th, 2015. During the session, Robert Louis Deer pleaded guilty but expressed no remorse. He appeared irritated, raised his voice several times while speaking to the judge, and insisted that he was fighting for the children, claiming that his attack was directed against abortions performed at the Planned Parenthood clinic. He even suggested that the court take into account the number of unborn children who, according to him, would have died in that clinic. At subsequent hearings, Deer aggressively voiced dissatisfaction with his attorney, accusing him of conspiring with Planned Parenthood, and refused to undergo psychiatric evaluation. On December 23, 2015, he demanded the dismissal of his lawyer and declared his intention to represent himself in court. After hearing his arguments, the judge ordered that the defendant undergo a psychiatric examination to assess his competency to stand trial. On May 11, 2016, Deer was declared incompetent and unfit to stand trial. As a result, the judge ordered the suspension of legal proceedings until the defendant completed the necessary psychiatric treatment. If, in the future, doctors deemed him mentally fit, the trial would resume. Deer was committed to a state psychiatric hospital in Colorado indefinitely. U.S. President Barack Obama was briefed on the incident by his national security advisors, Lisa Monaco, after which he publicly condemned the attack. "This is not normal, and we cannot allow this to become the norm. Enough is enough." He stated Obama, who had previously advocated for stricter gun control measures, once again called for a review of the country's existing firearms policies. U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch described the attack as a crime against women seeking medical care, law enforcement officers fulfilling their duty, and other innocent people. She assured that the Department of Justice would utilize all available resources to investigate the incident. Vicky Coward, the head of the local Planned Parenthood branch, expressed concern over the rise of extremism, which she said was fostering conditions for domestic terrorism. She emphasized that the organization would not back down from providing medical services in a safe and supportive environment. Both Coward and former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee characterized the attack as a form of domestic terrorism. This term had previously been used by abortion rights advocates. In October 2015, the NARAL movement launched a petition urging the Department of Justice to classify attacks on abortion clinics as a separate category of crimes. NARAL Vice President Sasha Bruce explained that domestic terrorism refers to violence targeting a specific group of citizens in an attempt to influence their decisions. According to her, the organization had already been demanding recognition of such crimes as a distinct threat even before the tragedy in Colorado. The event sparked reactions among U.S. presidential candidates. Donald Trump, representing the Republican Party, called Dear a maniac, while Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton voiced her support for Planned Parenthood on Twitter.